Captain John Mitchell stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and looked at the stars through the large window. The ship had been traveling through space for 6 months now, searching for new planets that humans could live on. John was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been a space captain for 20 years and loved his job more than anything else in the world. Dr. Lisa Warren sat at her station checking the computer screens. She was the ship's science officer and very smart. Lisa had short brown hair and always wore her white lab coat. She studied planets and stars to see if they were safe for humans. Today she was looking at a new star system called Kepler 442, Ryan. Carter walked around the ship checking that everything was working right. He was the security chief and made sure everyone stayed safe. Ryan was strong and had black hair. He carried a laser gun on his belt and knew how to fight very well. The other crew members felt safe when Ryan was around. Bobby Kim was down in the engine room fixing things as usual. He was the ship's engineer and could fix anything that broke. Bobby was young and had messy hair. He loved machines and computers more than people sometimes. His hands were always dirty from working on the ship's engines. Amanda Stone sat at the communications desk listening for radio signals from other ships or planets. She had long red hair and spoke many different languages. Amanda could talk to anyone and make them feel welcome. She was always ready to help when people had problems. The New Horizon was a big ship with white metal walls and blue lights. It had rooms for 50 people but only had 20 crew members on this trip. The ship moved very fast through space using special engines that Bobby kept running perfectly. Lisa looked up from her computer screen and called out to John. She had found something interesting near the third planet in the Kepler 442 system. The computer was showing strange metal objects moving around the planet. They were too big to be space rocks and moved in patterns that looked planned. John walked over to Lisa's station and looked at her screen. The objects were definitely not natural. They looked like ships but were much bigger than any human ship. John told Amanda to try sending a friendly radio message to the strange ships. Amanda pressed buttons on her communication panel and spoke into her microphone. She said hello in 10 different Earth languages and asked if anyone could hear her. Then she waited for an answer. The answer came very quickly but not in the way they expected. The ship's alarms started making loud noises and red lights flashed everywhere. Ryan ran to the bridge and told John that something was pulling their ship. They could not move forward or backward, or turn left or right. Bobby's voice came through the ship's speakers from the engine room. He said the engines were working fine, but something outside was holding them in place. It was like an invisible rope was tied around their ship. Then Amanda's communication screen lit up with a message. The words were in perfect English, but the voice sounded strange and cold. The message said that the humans must surrender immediately or they would be destroyed. John looked at his crew and saw fear in their eyes, but also something else. He saw that they were ready to fight. John told Amanda to send a message back. He said that humans do not surrender easily and asked what the aliens wanted. The answer came back quickly. The alien voice said they were from the Zephyrian Empire, and they took control of all species they met. Humans would become slaves, or they would die. Ryan checked his weapons and told the other security officers to get ready for a fight. Lisa tried to learn more about the alien ships using the ship's sensors. Bobby worked hard to break free from whatever was holding them. Amanda kept talking to the aliens to buy more time. Suddenly, the ship shook hard and the lights went out for a few seconds. When they came back on, John could see alien ships outside the window. They were long and black with sharp points like giant metal insects. The ships had green lights that pulsed like heartbeats. The alien voice spoke again and said that resistance was useless. They had captured hundreds of other species, and none had been able to fight back successfully. The humans had 1 minute to surrender or the aliens would board their ship by force. John looked at his crew and made a decision that would change everything. He told Ryan to prepare for boarding action, and told Lisa to start destroying all the important computer files. He told Bobby to set the engines to overload if needed and told Amanda to keep recording everything that happened. The aliens kept their promise, and exactly 1 minute later, the New Horizon shook again. This time, the shaking did not stop. Metal, cutting sounds came from the walls and sparks flew from broken machines. The aliens were cutting holes in the ship to get inside, Ryan and his security team stood ready with their weapons pointed at the holes in the walls. They knew they were probably going to lose this fight, but they were not going to make it easy for the aliens. The first alien soldiers came through the holes in the walls like a flood of giant bugs. They were tall and thin with 4 arms and big, black eyes. Their skin looked like green metal and they carried weapons that shot blue lightning. Ryan and his team started shooting, but their laser guns barely scratched the alien soldiers. The aliens shot back with their lightning weapons and the human soldiers fell down one by one. But even when they were hurt, the humans kept fighting and trying to stop the aliens. Lisa worked fast to delete the ship's computer files, but an alien soldier grabbed her before she could finish. The alien was much stronger than any human and picked her up easily. But Lisa bit the alien's arm and kicked until it let her go for a second. Bobby tried to make the engines explode to damage the alien ships, but more soldiers found him first. He threw tools at them and tried to hit them with a metal pipe, but there were too many aliens and they were too strong. Amanda kept broadcasting everything that was happening until an alien soldier broke her communication equipment. She kept talking even after her microphone was broken, because she wanted other humans to know what happened to them. John was the last one to be captured, because Ryan and his team fought so hard to protect him. When the aliens finally grabbed John, he was still giving orders to his crew and telling them to never give up hope. The alien commander was different from the soldiers. It was bigger and had golden metal skin instead of green. It spoke to John in perfect English and said that humans were more troublesome than most species, but they would learn to obey like all the others. John looked the alien commander in the eyes and said that humans had never learned to obey anyone and they were not going to start now. The alien commander made a sound like laughing and said that John would change his mind very soon. The alien ship was much bigger inside than it looked from the outside. John and his crew were taken to different parts of the ship and put in separate rooms. The walls were made of the same black metal as the outside, and there were no windows anywhere. Strange green lights hung from the ceiling and made everything look sick and scary. John found himself in a small room with no furniture except a metal chair. The door had no handle on the inside and he could not open it no matter how hard he tried. The room was cold and the air smelled like chemicals. He sat on the floor because the metal chair was too uncomfortable. After what felt like hours, the door opened and 3 aliens came in. 2 were soldiers like the ones who captured him, but the third was different. This one wore a long robe and had silver metal skin instead of green or gold. It had 6 arms instead of 4, and its eyes were bigger and more intelligent looking. The robed alien spoke to John in a voice that sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. It said its name was Zixandra, and it was a researcher who studied other species. It had broken the minds of warriors from 17 different planets, and John would be number 18. Zixandra told John that resistance was pointless because no species had ever been strong enough to fight the Zephyrian Empire for very long. It showed John pictures on a small screen of other aliens who had been captured. All of them looked sad and defeated, like they had given up all hope. John looked at the pictures and then looked back at Zixandra. He said that humans were different from other species, and they did not break easily. Zixandra made the laughing sound again and said that every species thought they were special, but they all broke in the end. In another part of the ship, Lisa was in a room full of computers and strange machines. An alien scientist was testing her intelligence with math problems and puzzles. The alien wanted to prove that humans were too stupid to deserve freedom. Lisa solved every problem the alien gave her, even though some of them were very hard. When she finished all the tests, the alien scientist looked confused. It gave her harder problems, but Lisa solved those too. Finally, Lisa started finding mistakes in the alien's own work and pointing them out. The alien scientist became angry and started shouting in its own language. Lisa could not understand the words, but she could tell the alien was frustrated. She smiled and asked if the alien had any harder problems because these were too easy. Ryan was in a different kind of room that looked like a gym, but with scary machines everywhere. Alien soldiers were trying to break his body and spirit with physical torture. They made him lift heavy weights until his muscles hurt and run on machines until he could barely breathe. But Ryan had been a soldier before he became a security chief, and he knew how to handle pain. Instead of breaking down, he started treating the torture like a workout. He asked the aliens to make the weights heavier and to let him run faster on their machines. The alien soldiers were confused because other species always begged them to stop the torture. Ryan was actually getting stronger and more confident instead of weaker. He started doing push-ups in his cell and practicing fighting moves he remembered from his military training. Bobby was in a room full of broken alien machines. The aliens told him to fix them but said he was too primitive and stupid to understand their technology. They wanted to prove that human engineering was worthless compared to Zephyrian science. Bobby looked at the alien machines and started taking them apart to see how they worked. The aliens watched him, expecting him to fail and break everything. Instead, Bobby found ways to make the machines work better than before. He fixed problems that the aliens did not even know existed. When Bobby finished fixing the machines, he started improving them. He made them faster and more efficient using ideas that the aliens had never thought of. The alien engineers watched in shock as their own technology got better in the hands of a human. Amanda was alone in a dark room where alien voices spoke to her constantly through hidden speakers. The voices told her that humans were weak and worthless and that she should be ashamed of her species. They said humans were the worst species they had ever captured, and everyone would be better off if humans disappeared. But Amanda had grown up with 4 older brothers who teased her all the time, so she was used to people trying to make her feel bad. Instead of believing the alien voices, she started analyzing their language and learning how they constructed their sentences. Amanda realized that the aliens were using very simple psychological tricks that would work on most people, but not on someone who understood how language and emotions work together. She started talking back to the voices and pointing out the logical flaws in their arguments. Days passed and none of the humans were breaking the way other species had broken. Zixandra visited John every day and tried new methods of mental torture. It showed him fake videos of his crew members dying and told him that everything bad that happened was his fault. John knew the videos were fake because he could see small technical mistakes in them. He told Zixandra that humans were good at detecting lies, and that it would have to try harder if it wanted to fool him. This made Zixandra even more frustrated. Lisa's tests kept getting harder, but she kept solving them and finding new problems with alien science. The alien scientists started arguing among themselves about whether their methods were wrong or if Lisa was somehow cheating. Ryan's torture sessions became more intense, but he treated them like advanced training courses. He started teaching himself new exercises using the alien equipment, and his body became stronger than it had ever been before. Bobby's engineering projects became so successful that other alien engineers started coming to watch him work. They wanted to understand how a primitive human could improve their advanced technology, but Bobby's methods were too creative for their rigid minds to follow. Amanda learned so much about the alien language that she started speaking to her captors in their own words. She used their own propaganda techniques against them and made them question their own beliefs about human inferiority. The alien commander Vextal visited the research facility to see why the humans were not breaking. It had expected them to surrender within a few days like all other species, but instead they seemed to be getting stronger and more confident. Zixandra told Vextal that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. Their minds worked in ways that Zephyrian psychology could not predict or control. Every method that had worked on other species seemed to make humans more determined to resist. Vextal looked at the security videos of the human prisoners and saw something that worried it. John was exercising in his cell and looked healthier than when he was first captured. Lisa was drawing scientific diagrams on the walls of her cell with her fingernails. Ryan was practicing combat moves and getting better every day. Bobby was building small machines out of scraps he found in his cell. Amanda was singing songs in the Zephyrian language that she had learned from her interrogators. The humans were not just refusing to break. They were adapting and growing stronger. Vextal had never seen anything like it in all its years of conquest. It decided that stronger measures would be needed to make the humans surrender. But deep inside its mind, Vextal felt something it had not felt for a very long time. It felt doubt. For the first time since the Zephyrian Empire began conquering other species, Vextal wondered if they might have found a species that could not be broken, no matter what they did to them. The other alien researchers were starting to have the same doubts. They had built their entire science on the idea that all species would eventually surrender if enough pressure was applied. The humans were proving that this idea might be wrong. Some of the younger alien researchers started asking questions about whether the Zephyrian way was really the best way. They wondered if there might be other approaches that did not involve breaking the spirits of other species. These questions made the older aliens very angry because their entire civilization was built on the belief that they were superior to everyone else. If humans could resist them, then maybe other species could resist too, and the whole empire might fall apart. Bextal decided that the human problem had to be solved quickly before their resistance started spreading to other parts of the empire. It ordered Zixandra to use the most extreme methods available and to break the humans within the next week or face severe punishment. The alien prison facility on the moon Karthek was supposed to be the most secure place in the Zephyrian Empire. For 30 years it had held prisoners from dozens of different species, and none of them had ever caused any real trouble. The broken aliens did their work quietly and followed orders without question. But something strange started happening after the humans arrived. Other prisoners began acting differently, and the alien guards noticed the changes right away. Prisoners who had been silent for years started talking to each other during work periods. Some of them even looked up from their tasks and made eye contact with the guards. Clicknash was a Veltari warrior who had been captured 15 years ago when his planet was conquered. The Veltari were tall blue aliens with 4 legs and natural armor on their skin. They had been fierce fighters before the Zephyrians broke their spirits and turned them into workers. Clicknash had not spoken to anyone in 5 years and spent his days carrying heavy boxes from one part of the facility to another. His blue skin had turned gray from sadness and his natural armor had become dull and weak. He moved slowly and never looked at anything except the floor. But when Clicknash was assigned to carry food to the human prisoners, he heard something he had not heard in years. He heard Ryan Carter singing an old Earth song about never giving up and fighting until the end. The song was simple, but it reminded Clicknash of the war songs his own people used to sing. Ryan saw Clicknash listening through the food slot in his door and started talking to him. Ryan could not speak the Veltari language, but he used hand gestures and simple words to communicate. He showed Clicknash some basic fighting moves and encouraged him to remember his warrior training. At first, Clicknash was afraid because prisoners were not supposed to talk to each other. But Ryan's confidence and strength reminded him of who he used to be before the Zephyrians captured him. Clicknash started standing up straighter, and his blue skin began to regain some of its original color. Spiral Lens was a Mordai engineer who had been working in the facility's maintenance department for 8 years. The Mordai were small gray aliens with 6 arms and incredible technical skills. Before their conquest, they had built machines that were almost like magic, but the Zephyrians had forced them to forget their advanced knowledge. Spiral Lens was responsible for maintaining the simple machines that the prisoners used for work. She had been doing the same boring repairs for years and had forgotten most of her advanced engineering skills. Her 6 arms moved slowly, and her large eyes looked tired and empty. When Spiral Lens was sent to fix the computer terminal in Lisa's cell, she expected to do a quick repair and leave. But Lisa started asking her technical questions about how the alien machines worked. Lisa showed genuine interest in Mordai engineering and wanted to learn about their old technologies. Lisa shared some human engineering concepts with Spiral Lens, and together they started discussing better ways to build machines. For the first time in years, Spiral Lens remembered what it felt like to solve complex technical problems and create new inventions. Spiral Lens began working faster and more efficiently. Her gray skin started showing flecks of silver, which was a sign of excitement among the Mordai. She started making small improvements to the machines she was supposed to maintain, and other Mordai prisoners noticed the changes. Flow Deep was a Depth One who worked in the facility's water treatment plant. The Depth Ones were aquatic aliens, who looked like large jellyfish with tentacles instead of arms. They came from ocean worlds and had advanced knowledge of biology and chemistry. Flow Deep had been captured 12 years ago and had spent all that time maintaining the basic water systems that kept the facility running. The Depth Ones were natural scientists, but the Zephyrians had forced Flow Deep to do simple manual labor instead of using its biological expertise. When Flow Deep was assigned to clean the pipes near Amanda's cell, it heard her speaking in multiple languages, including some chemical formulas she remembered from her science classes. Amanda noticed Flow Deep listening and started talking about Earth's oceans and marine biology. Amanda could not speak the Depth 1 language, but she drew pictures of Earth sea creatures and the condensation on the pipes. Flow Deep became excited and started drawing its own pictures of creatures from its home ocean. They began sharing knowledge about different ways that water-based life could evolve and adapt. Flow Deep remembered its love of biological research and started paying attention to the facility's ecosystem in ways it had not done for years. Its tentacles became more colorful and moved with more energy as its scientific curiosity returned to life. The alien guards started noticing that their model prison was becoming less stable. Prisoners were making eye contact with each other and sometimes even smiling. Work efficiency was actually improving, but the prisoners seemed more alert and aware of their surroundings. Zixandra received reports about the changes but was too focused on breaking the humans to pay much attention. It assumed that any problems with other prisoners could be solved easily once the humans were defeated, but the changes were spreading faster than anyone realized. Clicknash started teaching basic combat moves to other Veltari prisoners during their exercise periods. Spiral Lens began sharing advanced engineering concepts with other Mordai workers. Flow Deep started discussing biological sciences with other Depth ones in their dormitory. John learned about these changes when Clicknash managed to slip him a small piece of metal during a food delivery. The metal had been shaped into a tiny knife using techniques that only a Veltari warrior would know. This told John that Clicknash was remembering his fighting skills. John realized that the humans were not just resisting the aliens themselves, but were also inspiring other prisoners to resist. He started developing a plan to coordinate with the other species and use their combined strengths to escape from the facility. Amanda had learned enough of the alien languages to communicate basic ideas with prisoners from different species. She started passing messages between John and the natural leaders among the other prisoners. The messages were hidden in songs and poems that sounded harmless to the guards. Lisa worked with Spiral Lens to identify weaknesses in the facility's security systems. The Mordai engineer had been maintaining these systems for years and knew exactly where they were most vulnerable. Together they developed plans for disabling the most important defenses. Ryan coordinated with Clicknash and other warrior species prisoners to plan the physical aspects of an escape attempt. He taught them human fighting techniques while learning their own combat methods. The combination of different fighting styles created new tactics that no alien guard would expect. Bobby studied the facility's power systems with help from engineers of multiple species. Each alien race had different technical knowledge, and together they understood the facility's infrastructure better than the aliens who built it. The prisoners started preparing for escape in small ways that the guards did not notice. Veltari warriors practiced combat moves during exercise periods. Mordai engineers made small tools from scrap materials. Depth ones created biological compounds that could be used as weapons or tools. But the most important change was psychological. For the first time in years, the alien prisoners had hope. They remembered who they were before the Zephyrians captured them and started believing that freedom might be possible. Commander Vextal visited the facility for an inspection and immediately sensed that something was wrong. The prisoners looked different somehow, and there was an energy in the air that had not been there before. The facility felt less like a prison and more like a place where dangerous people were being held temporarily. Vextal questioned the guards about any changes in prisoner behavior, but the guards could not explain what was different. The prisoners were still following orders and doing their work, but they seemed more alive and aware than they had been in years. Zixandra showed Vextal the latest reports on the human prisoners and admitted that none of them were showing any signs of breaking. In fact, they seemed to be getting stronger and more confident with each passing day. The research methods that had worked on every other species were completely ineffective against humans. Vextal realized that the humans were not just a problem themselves, but were becoming a source of contamination that was affecting other prisoners. The humans were somehow teaching other species that resistance was possible, and that the Zephyrian Empire could be fought. This was the most dangerous thing that had ever happened in the history of the Zephyrian Empire. If word spread that prisoners could successfully resist, then rebellions might start on every world they controlled. The entire foundation of their civilization was based on the fear and obedience of conquered species. Vextel decided that extreme measures were necessary to solve the human problem before it could spread any further. It ordered that the facility be placed under maximum security and that any prisoner showing signs of resistance be isolated immediately. But it was already too late to contain the situation. The idea of resistance had taken root among the prisoners and was growing stronger every day. The humans had not just refused to break themselves, but had shown other species that breaking was a choice, rather than an inevitable result of capture. Commander Vextel had made a decision that would change everything. The humans were too dangerous to keep alive, and their influence on other prisoners was spreading too quickly to control. It decided that Captain John Mitchell would be executed, in front of all the other prisoners, as an example of what happened to those who refused to obey the Zephyrian Empire. The execution was scheduled for the next morning in the facility's main courtyard. All prisoners would be forced to watch while John was killed by a Zephyrian energy weapon. Vextel believed that seeing their leader die would break the spirits of the other humans and end the resistance movement before it could grow any larger. But Vextel had seriously underestimated what the humans had accomplished during their time in the prison. The network of communication and cooperation that Amanda had built between different species was much stronger than the aliens realized. Word of John's planned execution spread through the entire facility within hours. Clicknash felt something he had not felt in 15 years when he heard about the execution. He felt anger burning in his chest like the war fire of his ancestors. The human Ryan Carter had reminded him that he was a warrior, and warriors did not let their friends die without a fight. Clicknash used the Veltari hand signals he had taught to other prisoners to send a message through the dormitories. The message was simple but powerful. Tomorrow they would fight for freedom or die trying. There would be no more slavery and no more broken spirits. Spiral Lens received the message through the maintenance tunnels where she had been secretly building escape tools with other Mordai engineers. She had spent weeks creating small weapons and devices from spare parts and broken machinery. Now it was time to use them. Flowdeep got the message through the water system pipes where Depth Ones could communicate using chemical signals that the alien guards could not detect. The aquatic aliens had been preparing biological weapons from the facility's organic waste systems and were ready to deploy them. Dr. Lisa Warren was in her cell working on calculations she had been making for days. She had figured out the exact timing needed to overload the facility's power grid, using the information that Spiral Lens had provided about the electrical systems. The overload would disable the security systems and give the prisoners a chance to escape. Ryan Carter had been teaching combat techniques to prisoners from multiple species and learning their fighting methods in return. He now knew how to use Veltari armor-breaking moves, Mordai pressure point attacks, and Depth 1 toxin strikes. Most importantly, he had taught the alien prisoners that working together made them much stronger than fighting alone. Bobby Kim had been studying the facility's transportation systems with engineers from different species. They had identified the location of a hidden hangar bay where the aliens kept small transport ships. If they could reach the hangar during the chaos of an escape attempt, they might be able to steal ships and leave the moon. Amanda Stone had become the communication hub for the entire Resistance network. She could speak basic phrases in 7 different alien languages and had learned the cultural signals that each species used to show trust and cooperation. She would coordinate the timing of the escape attempt to make sure all groups acted together. Night before John's execution, the prisoners barely slept. They were too excited and nervous about what they were planning to do. Many of them had been slaves for years and had forgotten what it felt like to take control of their own lives. John knew about the escape plan because Clicknash had managed to slip him a detailed message during the evening food delivery. John felt proud of his crew and the alien friends they had made, but he also worried that too many good people might die in the attempt to save him. But John also understood that this was about much more than saving one human captain. This was about proving that the Zephyrian Empire could be defeated, and that no species had to accept slavery as their permanent fate. The escape attempt would send a message across the galaxy that resistance was possible. Early in the morning, The alien guards came to John's cell to prepare him for execution. They put heavy chains on his hands and feet and marched him toward the courtyard where a crowd of prisoners was already waiting. John walked with his head up and his shoulders straight because he wanted the other prisoners to see that he was not afraid. But as John entered the courtyard, he noticed that something was different about the way the prisoners were standing. Instead of looking down at the ground like broken slaves, they were standing tall and looking around alertly like people who were ready to fight. Vexatal stood on a raised platform holding the energy weapon that would kill John. It began speaking, in a loud voice, about the power of the Zephyrian Empire and the foolishness of resistance. It wanted all the prisoners to understand that defying the Empire would always end in death. But Vexatal had barely started its speech when the facility's lights suddenly went out. Lisa's power overload had worked perfectly, and the entire electrical system shut down. Emergency lighting came on, but it was dim and red, which made everything look like a battlefield. At the same moment, Clicknash let out a Veltari war cry that echoed across the courtyard. The sound reminded every Veltari prisoner of their warrior heritage, and they responded with their own battle cries. The noise was so loud and fierce that some of the alien guards stepped backward in fear. Ryan Carter broke free from the guards who were holding him using a move that Clicknash had taught him. He grabbed a weapon from one of the guards and started fighting his way toward John's platform. Other human prisoners followed his example, and the courtyard erupted into chaos. Spiral Lens and the other Mordai engineers activated the devices they had hidden throughout the facility. Automated systems began malfunctioning and security doors started opening and closing randomly. The aliens could not control their own technology because the Mordai had turned it against them. Flow Deep and the Depth ones released biological compounds into the air circulation system that made many of the alien guards feel sick and confused. The compounds were not deadly, but they made it hard for the aliens to think clearly or move quickly. Prisoners from every species joined the fight, using weapons they had made in secret and skills they had thought were forgotten. Veltari warriors used their natural armor to protect other prisoners while they attacked the guards. Mordai engineers disabled alien weapons with technical knowledge the guards did not understand. Depth ones used their tentacles to entangle and confuse their enemies. The alien guards had superior weapons and training, but they were completely unprepared for a coordinated attack by multiple species working together. They had never faced an enemy that combined the fighting styles and technologies of different civilizations. Vexatal tried to shoot John with the energy weapon, but Amanda Stone had organized a group of prisoners to throw debris at the platform. Rocks and pieces of metal flew through the air and forced Vexatal to take cover instead of firing. John broke free from his chains using a Veltari strength technique that Clicknash had taught him through hand signals during the march to the courtyard. He jumped down from the platform and started leading groups of prisoners toward the hangar bay that Bobby had identified. During the fighting, Lisa Warren made a discovery that changed everything. She found her way to the facility's computer center and accessed the Zephyrian historical archives. What she found there shocked her and made her understand why the aliens behaved the way they did. The Zephyrians were not originally a conquering species. Their homeworld had been destroyed in civil wars thousands of years ago, and they had become refugees wandering through space. Their current behavior was driven by deep fear and insecurity rather than natural aggression. The alien empire was built on a lie. The Zephyrians convinced themselves that they deserved to survive by proving they were superior to other species. Every species they conquered validated their worth, and every species that resisted threatened their psychological foundation. Lisa broadcast this information through the facility's communication system so that both prisoners and guards could hear it. The revelation caused confusion among the alien soldiers because many of them had never known the true history of their own species. Some alien guards stopped fighting when they heard the broadcast. They started questioning whether their empire was really as noble and superior as they had been taught. A few of them actually helped prisoners escape because they realized that what they were doing was wrong. Bobby Kim reached the hangar bay with a mixed group of human and alien prisoners. They found several small transport ships, and Bobby worked with Mordai engineers to get them started. The ships were designed for alien pilots, but the combined technical knowledge of multiple species made it possible to fly them. The escape was not perfect, and many prisoners were recaptured or injured during the fighting. But enough of them reached the transport ships to make the escape successful. John and his human crew all made it to the ships along with dozens of alien prisoners including Clicknash, Spiralens, and Flowdeep. As the stolen ships flew away, from the prison moon, Lisa continued broadcasting the historical information about the Zephyrians. The broadcast was picked up by communication arrays throughout the local star system and began spreading to other worlds. The stolen transport ships flew through space carrying the escaped prisoners toward freedom, but John Mitchell knew their real journey was just beginning. They had started something much bigger than a simple prison break, and now they had to see it through to the end. The ships were small and not designed for long trips, but Bobby Kim and the Mordai engineers had modified them to travel farther than the aliens thought possible. They used technical knowledge from multiple species to improve the engines and navigation systems in ways that no single species could have accomplished alone. Amanda Stone used the ship's communication equipment to contact resistance groups throughout the galaxy. The broadcast of Zephyrian history that Lisa had transmitted was spreading from world to world and inspiring uprisings on planets that had been quiet for decades. Clicknash piloted one of the ships with natural skill that surprised even himself. He had forgotten how good it felt to be free and in control of his own actions. His blue skin had returned to its original bright color, and his natural armor gleamed like it had when he was a young warrior. The first planet they visited was Veltar, the homeworld of Clicknash and his people. The Zephyrians had left only a small garrison there because the Veltari had been broken so completely that rebellion seemed impossible. But when Clicknash landed and told his story, everything changed very quickly. Veltari warriors who had been working as laborers and servants suddenly remembered their proud heritage. They began forging weapons in secret and organizing resistance cells in every city and town. The Zephyrian garrison found itself surrounded by an entire planet of angry warriors who were no longer afraid to fight. Ryan Carter worked with the Veltari to plan military operations against Zephyrian installations throughout their sector of space. The combination of human tactical thinking and Veltari combat skills created strategies that the aliens could not predict or counter effectively. The next planet they liberated was Mordai Prime, where Spiral Lens had been born. The Mordai had been forced to work in simple factories making basic tools, but they still remembered how to build advanced technology. With Spiral Lens leading them, they began constructing weapons and ships that were far superior to anything the Zephyrians possessed. Lisa Warren worked closely with Mordai scientists to develop new technologies that combined human creativity with alien engineering knowledge. They created communication systems that could not be intercepted, weapons that could penetrate Zephyrian armor, and ships that were faster and more maneuverable than anything in the alien fleet. Flowdeep returned to the ocean world of Depthon, where its people had been forced to work in underwater mining operations. The Depth Ones had been developing biological weapons in secret for years, but had never used them because they had no hope of victory. Now they were ready to fight. The Depth Ones created living weapons that could disable Zephyrian technology, and biological agents that made alien soldiers sick without harming other species. Their underwater cities became hidden bases where resistance fighters from many different worlds could meet and plan operations. As the rebellion spread, the Zephyrian Empire began to fracture from within. Many young Zephyrians who learned the truth about their history started questioning everything they had been taught about their superiority over other species. Some Zephyrian military units refused to fight against the rebels because they no longer believed in the Empire's cause. A few Zephyrian commanders even switched sides and began helping the resistance movement by providing intelligence about alien military plans. But the core leadership of the Empire became more desperate and dangerous as they lost control. Commander Vextal assembled the largest fleet in Zephyrian history and announced that it would destroy Earth as an example to all species who dared to resist the Empire. John Mitchell knew that the final battle was coming, and that everything they had fought for would be decided in the defense of humanity's homeworld. He sent messages to resistance groups throughout the galaxy asking them to send every ship they could spare to help defend Earth. The response was overwhelming. Ships from dozens of different species began arriving in the solar system to stand with humanity against the Zephyrian fleet. Veltari battlecruisers flew alongside Mordai technical ships and Depth 1 biovessels in the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. When Vextal's fleet arrived at Earth, they found a defensive force unlike anything they had ever encountered. The Alliance ships used technologies and tactics from multiple civilizations working together in perfect coordination. Every species contributed their unique strengths to create a combined force that was greater than the sum of its parts. The battle was fierce and lasted for 3 days. Zephyrian ships were more numerous, but the Alliance vessels were more advanced and better coordinated. Human pilots flew ships designed by Mordai engineers and armed with Veltari weapons, while Depth 1 bioships provided support with their living technology. But the real turning point came when John Mitchell made a decision that no one expected. Instead of demanding the Zephyrian fleet's surrender, he broadcast a message offering them something they had never been offered before: forgiveness and a chance to join the Alliance as equals. John's message was heard by every ship in both fleets. He spoke about the true history of the Zephyrians and acknowledged that they had become conquerors because they were afraid and desperate. He offered them a place in a new galactic civilization where they could find the security they had been seeking through cooperation instead of conquest. The message caused confusion and debate among the Zephyrian crews. Many of them had never heard anyone speak to them with respect and understanding instead of fear or hatred. Some ships stopped fighting and began broadcasting requests for more information about John's offer. Vextal ordered its ships to continue the attack, but many Zephyrian commanders hesitated. They had been taught that other species were inferior and dangerous, but the Alliance fleet was fighting to protect rather than to conquer. The aliens they had called primitive were showing mercy and wisdom that Zephyrian leaders had never displayed. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with negotiation. Representatives from both sides met on a neutral space station to discuss terms for ending the war. John Mitchell led the Alliance delegation, while Vextal represented the Zephyrian Empire. The negotiations took weeks, but eventually resulted in an agreement that transformed the entire galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire agreed to release all conquered species and compensate them for damages, while the Alliance agreed to help rebuild Zephyrian society on a foundation of cooperation instead of conquest. Not all Zephyrians accepted the new arrangement, and some extremist groups continued fighting for several years, but the majority of the alien population was tired of war and grateful for the chance to live peacefully among other species. The new galactic civilization that emerged from the Alliance was based on principles that the humans had demonstrated during their captivity. Every species was treated as equal regardless of their technology level or military strength. Differences between cultures were celebrated as sources of strength rather than reasons for conflict. John Mitchell became the first president of the Galactic Council, a position he held with wisdom and fairness for many years. Lisa Warren led the Council's scientific division and helped develop technologies that benefited all member species. Ryan Carter commanded the Council's peacekeeping forces and trained soldiers from dozens of different worlds to work together. Bobby Kim became the chief engineer for the Council's exploration fleet and designed ships that could travel farther and faster than anyone had thought possible. Amanda Stone served as the Council's chief diplomat and helped establish peaceful contact with new species as they were discovered. The former prison moon Karthek was transformed into a memorial and museum dedicated to the victims of Zephyrian conquest and the heroes of the resistance movement. Visitors from throughout the galaxy came to learn about the importance of hope and cooperation in overcoming oppression. Click Nash became the leader of the rebuilt Veltari warrior culture, but this time their strength was used to protect the weak instead of conquering the strong. Spiral Lens led a team of engineers from multiple species who worked together to solve the galaxy's greatest technical challenges. Flow Deep established biological research stations that helped heal worlds damaged by war and pollution. Even Zixandra, the alien researcher who had tried so hard to break the human prisoners, eventually joined the Council's psychological rehabilitation program. It spent its later years helping other former Zephyrians learn to live without the fear and aggression that had driven their empire. The galaxy was not perfect, and there were still conflicts and problems to solve. But the example set by the humans and their alien friends had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that hope was more powerful than fear. Years later, when new species were discovered and contacted, they often asked what made the Galactic Alliance so successful. The answer was always the same. They had learned from humanity that the true measure of strength was not the ability to break others, but the ability to help them become stronger. The humans had been right when they told their captors that they could not be broken.